Got the thumbs up?
Not yet, almost.
Okay. Hey y'all, this is Mark G. Abolitionist on the air with you at KEXU 96.1 FM LP Revolution Radio, where we explore the connection between imperial war and incarceration. I don't limit myself to being a prison abolitionist because there are more structures and institutions that I seek to abolish than just incarceration. For example, white supremacy and racism, two different things. Male supremacy and patriarchy, two different things. Class supremacy and wage oppression, two different things. And imperial war. Yes, imperial war is an institution of the American empire. But let me be very clear. The United States military is an institution, as we all know. However, it serves the institution of imperial war. The need for imperial conquest shapes and defines the U.S. military. In fact, the European settler lust and need for indigenous lands made the development of a military necessary. All who opposed or resisted were killed or imprisoned. The first reservations were in fact prisons. I'm going to talk a little bit about Vietnam. Y'all also make sure you hear Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, and any and every inner city in America. I have the blood of the Vietnamese on my hands. I was young and innocent, but their blood I have on my hands. The time of killing done, 42 died that morning in 10 minutes. The time of murder and rape begun, cleared a village, burned it to the ground. The time of killing done, the time of murder and rape begun, a howl in the silence of our movement. Our terror become bloodthirsty. We, the teeth of the rabid beast, set to sink into flesh, ripping and tearing, moved into the village, a snarl in our approach. I have the blood of the Vietnamese on my hands. I was young and innocent, but their blood I still have on my hands. Let their blood be fertilizer for the flowers that spring forth from my life. Last week, I talked about the Gaza Strip in Palestine, the largest open-air prison in the world. Previously, we talked some about the establishment of the reservation system here in the contiguous United States, known by many indigenous cultures as Turtle Island, as prisons. Today, I want to talk a little bit about Guantanamo. Yes, you've heard of the prison Guantanamo. Guantanamo was created after 9/11. Guantanamo is at Guantanamo Bay on the island of Cuba. Guantanamo Bay is a military base for the United States of America. It was a military base for the United States of America before the revolution in Cuba in 1959. And it continues to be a military base, the United States of America, on the island of Cuba. It was here that the United States established a prison to bring people to from Afghanistan and Iraq. Many were people who committed no crimes. Many languished for years and years. Currently, I think there's around 36 people still imprisoned in Guantanamo Bay. These people, the majority of whom have been cleared for release, are still being held. The establishment of Guantanamo Bay made it clear to the world that the United States empire could do whatever it wanted. It established the seizing of people in other parts of the world and bringing them to Guantanamo Bay. This is a process that's extra legal, beyond the legal boundaries and the legal structures that exist. They imprisoned people who were not members of an army, who were not members of a resistance resisting the United States. They seized people who were just regular people. Torture was a regular form practiced at Guantanamo Bay. We don't hear too much about it anymore. But in the early 2000s, there was a lot of discussion about torture. And there were many people who were saying torture doesn't work. That people being tortured will tell their torturers, their tormentors, anything that's wanted to be heard. The information is unreliable. I am not one of those people. Torture absolutely works. It just depends on what the goals are. It may not work to extract immediate information from someone about something that's impending. In many cases, it won't. However, torture does work. It works because pain becomes intolerable. Pain becomes unbearable. And people succumb. People's spirits are broken. I analyze that a big part of what was going on in Guantanamo with the torturing of people who were imprisoned there was to understand the cultures in Afghanistan and Iraq and the broader Middle East. This was understood and learned through the destruction of human beings, through systematic torture. Human beings can be taken apart. We can be broken down into our components. We can be broken down in the cultural aspects that make us up as human beings living in society and a culture. Through torture, through the destruction of human beings, through the destruction of human spirits, the actual dismantling of the structures of our lives, the things we believe, the culture that we express, the rituals that we hold, all of these can be taken apart. And we are left with nothing. Nothing at all as a human being. The things that we consider that make us human. It reduces us to mere shells. Our bodily functions still function, but the person is simply a shell. And this was done to show the world that the United States empire could do what it wanted could work its will anywhere in the world. People were snatched off the streets, transported to Guantanamo, and subjected to the most humane and brutal forms of torture. All of this in the name of combating terrorism. Even though the people imprisoned had nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do, with the destruction of the World Trade Center towers in New York City, which was the pretext for attacking Afghanistan and Iraq. Neither country having anything to do with the destruction of the towers in New York City. This lets the world know that the United States Empire sees itself as omnipotent, can do anything it wants anywhere in the world. Guantanamo still exists, continues to exist. A number of years ago, Guantanamo was used to imprison people fleeing the conditions in Haiti, the island nation that had a slave revolution where slaves freed themselves. The only place in world history where slaves successfully rebelled against their slave masters and freed themselves, setting up a new country. At present time, plans are being made to imprison Haitian refugees in Guantanamo. We're going to close out now. We'll continue this discussion in the coming weeks. In closing, I would like to say, please join with me, the Prisoners of Conscience Committee, All of Us or None, formerly incarcerated and convicted and people and family movement, and we say, what's the call? Free them all. Dare to struggle. Dare to win. All power to the people. Ashe. Oh, good. Yeah, when that popped up, and then I wasn't sure if that was a signal from you.
Oh, no.
Let me know it was time,
No.
and stuff. But, so I started to wrap it up.